Okay. And I need you all to open your minds and be able to take a little journey with me. Is that okay? Yeah. And I'm going to share the story with you, which means there are times that I will need for you to be interactive. Is that okay? Yeah. So when I say aye, can you go aye? Aye. One more time. Aye. 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 Okay, we're ready.
Okay, we're ready.
So, at this time, there was no water. And the people could not cry. Or their joints would become tense and dysfunctional as their ligaments pulled the liquids. So because the people could not cry, they became afraid to feel. They interacted with each other without emotion. So at this time, there were very few elders because people couldn't live too long without feeling. So the children became the leaders. And they were masters at technology. They were savvy at mathematics and philosophy. And they knew everything about political and legal systems. But when all the systems failed, they had nothing to enforce everything they had once relied on. They became scattered in their hopelessness. But one young girl, she stepped up. She says, aye, aye. She says, if in fear we live, then in fear we die. If we are going to survive, we must unify. So the children named this young girl their leader. And she was determined to help them survive. But she did not know how. She contemplated every lesson she had ever learned, but none gave an answer. Distraught, she went into a deep, dark wilderness in search for answers. When she heard a voice, come here. The voice was deeper and richer, more full than any she had ever heard. Come here. The young girl looked into these deep brown eyes of an older woman. She says, who are you? The old woman says, I am wisdom. The young girl says, wisdom, please. We have no water. We have no food. What must we do to survive? The old woman says, dig. Excited, the young girl returned to the children to whom they had called the leader, and she says, aye, aye. She says, I command you right now to dig. And they dug right there in the dry field of dead trees because they trusted their leader. And they worked very hard digging for 7 days. And they were tired, but there was nothing. Well, the young girl, she was thinking, what could she do? What could she tell them? She figured she would go out into the wilderness once more to find wisdom. She found the old woman under the light of the orange moon, and she says, wisdom, please. We are very tired. What must we do to survive? The old woman says once again, dig. The young girl returns to the children to whom she was the leader, and she commanded them to dig right there in the dry field of dead trees. Well, they dug. Some of them at their own pace. And some of them began to bicker. What kind of a leader was she to command them to dig right there in the dry field of dead trees? And they began to chat among each other as they were digging slowly, but their bodies were tired. The young girl did not know what to do. She returned once again into the wilderness to find wisdom. And she says, wisdom, oh woman, whoever you are, please. We are dying. I fear we will be no more. What must we do to survive? Once again, the old woman said, dig. The young girl returned to the children to whom she was the leader, and she says, aye. But this time, she said nothing. She went over to the smallest child who was there digging the smallest hole, and she dug with him. And their hole became substantial. Seeing this, the children began to work in twos, and in threes, and in groups, and all over the dry field of dead trees were holes. Their bodies were weak, and they gave out. But the young girl, hearing the words of wisdom, dig, 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 dug. Right there in the same place she dug. She dug until she could barely dig anymore, and she reached in her hand, and there beneath the surface of the earth in the dry field of dead trees was water. And the children gathered around, and they all dug in, and they pulled the water, and they began to drink, and they drank from each other's palms, and they could feel again. And just as they began to open up a bit and could see each other's faces more clearly, the skies cracked open, and there was rain pouring out of the sky right into the holes that the children dug there in the dry field of dead trees. And it rained, and the children reached out their arms, and they danced in it, for they could feel joy once again, and their joyful laughter became joyful tears. They remembered once again how to love. They had found a freedom. And in that land that was once called the dry field of dead trees, the children drank for 7 years, and the trees, they bore fruit for 7 generations. Aye, 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 aye.
Yeah, so we want to see first this 5 minutes piece we lost this morning somewhere in the book. We're going to get it now. So this is the one who mirrors Saki's piece we saw this morning. And after that, I'm going to say something. And we're going to have one short piece, and then we will have a couple of